So we'll be talking about the EPN plugin for QuickBooks and EPN bill pay. Is that correct? And with conveniency?
All right, I think we're ready.
Okay. So I'll first talk about QuickBooks and the EPN plugin. And our plugin is installed locally on the machine where QuickBooks is installed. And it allows the customer to run transactions live within QuickBooks against invoices, sales receipts, even financial statements, that kind of thing. So, and it also allows you to upload the transactions to our bill pay server, which will send that via email to the customer to pay online. And the transactions are then downloaded into QuickBooks once they're processed and settled. But let's take a quick look at how to receive a payment. So if you have a customer that has an invoice and they call you on the phone, or you save their credit card data in our system, you can pull up their account and see if I can find someone with an invoice. Let's see, try my name now. There we go. So John Doe, so we would come in here and we'd select the customer, how much they're paying, the invoice that it's being applied to. The merchant would then specify what type of card they're receiving. This is more for a QuickBooks to record in QuickBooks what types of credit cards they're accepting to give them an accurate report of that. So they would just select Visa and click done. Once that's done, they'll save and close. And then the EPN plugin will open here. And they can either swipe the card if the card's present. We could also look for card on file, which would search for any card that that customer has on file with us. I guess I haven't processed any with this guy in a while. Change it there. There we go. So I can then find, and you can search up to the last year for the credit cards. It will list more than one credit card if they've used it. So let's say it's one company, but they have 3 different buyers from you. It'll show the name and you can then select the appropriate buyer. And then you would just choose this payment and it fills in that card data for you. And then you click process. And then it'll tell you whether the transaction's been approved or not. And then you can print the receipt here. Most merchants will just go back into QuickBooks and email the receipts from there. But if you wanted a physical receipt, you could print it here. And that's pretty much receiving it. Everything's recorded live in QuickBooks. There's no additional things for them to do. The batch will then settle later in that day and the money will be deposited. So that's if they were to go that route. The other option is to create an invoice for someone. And once you've done that, we'll just do 5. And once you've created the invoice the way you want it, you would save and close. And then the plugin will prompt if you want to receive a payment, which will go on to that step we just did, and I can receive that payment right now. If I'm using the bill pay service, then you can upload it to our EPN bill pay, and then that will allow the customer to pay online. And I'll show you that now. So I've uploaded it to the bill pay. I'm just going to refresh this screen here. And so here's my open invoice that I just created for myself with today's date. And if we look at that, we can see that it has my billing information, the ship to information. This is all information that's pulled from QuickBooks, from the invoice that was created in QuickBooks. It was emailed to me today, so I'll receive an email to my email address, and then I can pay it online. Now, this is what it would look like to the customer once they've received the invoice. So they would itemize what's been purchased, quantity, so forth, and any of the taxes will be added from QuickBooks, shipping, those kinds of things that are pulled over from QuickBooks will show. And then they just click pay now, and then it'll go on to the transaction window where they put their card number in. And we'll just do 1, 2, 3, 4. So once they've processed the transaction and get an approval, okay, so the transaction's approved. We can go back here and just refresh our screen. And now the invoice is paid here, but the transaction hasn't been settled. So I'm going to go force the settlement so I can then download that transaction into QuickBooks. Now the merchant wouldn't do this. It would automatically do that for them, but I'm just forcing it so we can see it in action. All right, so now that the batch is settled, we can come back here to QuickBooks. Now the download manager has two different settings, and I'm just going to bring up the preferences here. You can have it set to automatic, which would download it the moment you open QuickBooks, and you'll get a report indicating that it's downloaded so many transactions and what's ready to record. And there's also an option that in case it doesn't know exactly where to record it, it'll give you that report as well. Or you can set it to manual, and that just means you have to click the button to initiate that download. So it's whatever the merchant wants. It can either be done automatically when they open, or they can just click the button and it'll download at that moment. So right now it's, let's cancel that. We'll refresh. So it's downloading whatever it can from the server, and it should give us my transaction I just processed.
Now, while it's doing this, could I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
How or when would be throughout the process will we disclose the fee, the merchant fee?
The convenience fee,
Yes.
like a type of thing. Okay, well, that can be handled through QuickBooks. It's best to do it here if you know that you're going to apply it for the invoice. So for instance, I'm gonna just put in some products here to show 5 cakes, and we'll do 5 cookies. And then what you would do is add a subtotal and then the convenience fee. And then it would itemize, there's the convenience fee. Now this would translate to that bill pay invoice that, you know, if we uploaded it, it's best to do it here. That way QuickBooks can track it for you. If we apply the convenience fee at the time of the transaction, then when the transaction's downloaded, it will still apply to the invoice, but there will be a remaining balance because you'll have to go in and tell QuickBooks that convenience fee was applied.
So we definitely, is there a way that the convenience fee would automatically be added so that our people won't forget about it, or, you know, disregard it, or somewhere or another not apply it?
Well, if you, well, the plugin, because these invoices are uploaded directly to our bill pay, the design is that we can't change anything, any of the values, unless you change it in QuickBooks, because we're mimicking what's going on in QuickBooks. So when you upload it here, you would actually need to add it into the invoice this way. So that way it would be tracked with the invoice and in QuickBooks. And if that's a concern about the employee creating the invoice this way, I think there might be a way to customize your invoices to add it in a couple of lines down where it just automatically comes up with your invoice, but that would be the way to handle it through the plugin itself or through QuickBooks itself. There are other ways to apply a convenience fee. The only, let's see. So we could also do it through a web form, which is a little bit different. You wouldn't use the bill pay system. You would actually edit. Let's go check. Send forms.
We want to do. Not be added in.
So in like,
Or to what we have right now to where we're manually keying it in as well.
Yeah.
was there a question? I didn't.
Well, I think you might be answering my question, Kedra, but my question essentially was if there is a way to manually set it so it's automatic, because you said there might be, that was your original statement was there might be. So I just wanted know if we do know the answer is for sure, yes or no. And if it isn't, if you don't know for sure, when we could find that out.
Well, what you can do in QuickBooks is actually, we can add a link inside the email template so that you can email the invoice directly through QuickBooks, and that would not include our bill pay servers. And then that they would have like a pay now link. And so the web form would be on your website, or if you use our payment form, then we can host that page for you. And that would just provide a link for them to click that says pay now. And they click on that, it would open the web form. They would have to put in their invoice number and how much the customer wants to pay. And then it will go on that same process to the credit card screen.
But that wouldn't be an automatic adding the 3%.
It would, because in the web form, let me get
Yes.
over here, I'm sorry. So over here on the web form, you can add that convenience fee at that time. So ultimately, see, we include it here. We tell it to be a QuickBooks invoice. I don't know if this is in the way or not. And then we change a few of these things, and then you'd specify how much the convenience fee is. And of course, this would be applied to all internet sales, because there's no way to do a cash, though it wouldn't apply to a debit card would still be looked at it. So anytime transactions go through this form, they would all apply the convenience fee. So you can put 3.99, move, where's that in my way? And then when you generate it, this is just a basic form, but the customer put their invoice number in, how much they're paying, and click continue. And I'll just put some information in just to show us the next page. And so it would show the invoice number that they're paying, and then the convenience fee would be applied based off of that 3.99%.
And that's for the invoicing specifically. So if you emailed it out.
Correct. This would be if you wanted to do it using QuickBooks' email and go through that route instead of using our bill pay.
I have a couple questions for my customer, which you'll essentially answer for us. But right now you're managing multiple companies, is that correct?
Yes.
3 through the system. Are you using 3 different?
There's 3 different EIN numbers.
3 different portals as well. So what is that? Kedra, could you kind of break down how that could potentially work or not, or best case scenario for them using 3 different?
Well, the plugin is not designed to do multiple companies like that. So the only way to really get to be able to do it is if you were to, let's say, log into company A, right? And that's the first QuickBooks company you log in that day, then you want to make sure that you're why is this taking so long today? There we go. So you would actually open the configuration of the plugin, and then you would change the account number. So if, let's say this is for company A, then we know it's already set and ready to go. Now, my question, I guess, is how many transactions do you accept over the phone or in person? That kind of thing,
It's, excuse me, basically all three companies gonna be over the phone.
over the
There's
phone.
no face-to-face walk-in.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Sorry.
So in that case, if we're not looking to actually accept credit cards right through QuickBooks, then you probably don't need the plugin. Well, we do need it to download the transactions. So the thing is you would still have to tell QuickBooks, or the plugin rather, which account you're wanting to download those transactions from. Now, it does have a basic memory of that account number and what was downloaded, but you still have to change the number. So even if I were to change this to company B and then save changes and open QuickBooks, the download manager would only pull transactions from company B's account. Even if you open company A, it'll still download those transactions, but it does not immediately record them. So if you catch you're like, oh, I don't want these recorded in company A, they need to be in company B, then you would just close QuickBooks, and open the appropriate file so you can record those payments. Was that clear?
So that screen that just came up or before that, that's how we have the three companies. So
Right.
right there.
So you would select whichever one. The key is you have to make sure that the plugin is configured to the right account for the download process. And that you just want to make sure that the company you're opening is configured to the right company in our system.
How are you? Look how pretty you go. You're wearing my favorite color. Oh, sorry.
Oh, we're still in the middle. Ketra, it's a little harder to hear you. I wanted to just make sure we had someone enter the room. So do you want to sit here? But I did want to make sure just so we're all on the same page. When you said that they have to make sure that these accounts match the plugin, what you're saying is they have to match the number that they just pre-selected?
Correct. Well, in our system, all account numbers are about a 5 to 7 digit number. So before they open the company file that they want to download those transactions for, they would want to log into the configuration, change this number to the appropriate one. And then when they open QuickBooks, and we'll just see that here. And this may be an instance where you want it to be set to manual instead of auto. That way you can tell it when you want it to download the transactions. But so then when I log into this company, the account that I have configured in the plugin will be the transactions that it downloads from our server from that account. And it's just connecting to my swiper now, but I need to turn that off real quick. Hold on. Close. It's running a little slow today. Our power went out a couple of times this morning. So
Oh, wow.
Oh, no.
Fortunately, the storms are past, but
Where is he at?
Here's Tim.
Oh, okay.
Oy.
Here's line.
No, she's driving.
Oh.
Yeah.
That was top of budget.
okay, so here's the
Morning.
report of the download. You would get this whether you clicked manual or auto and had it do it on it automatically, or you clicked on the button, this report comes up and it just tells you that 2 transactions were downloaded, 1's ready to record, and that there are 5 needing assistance. Since these transactions are coming through a website with an invoice number, you should rarely ever have one that needs assistance. Because we're told what the number is, then we can tell QuickBooks, here's a payment for that particular invoice. So if we go to this one, we see that the invoice number that I had created earlier for the test that we did. So then I would know that's the payment I want to record, and I'd click record payments, and then it's recorded in QuickBooks. If we come back here to, not invoices, back to my name, we see that here's the invoice and here's the payment for it. And the invoice is marked paid up here. So that's the real key, is just to make sure that you change the account number so that the plugin knows which account in our system to work with.
Now, Kendra, another question, would they be able to set their own account numbers for each different account?
No, it's generated by our system. Once the account's created in our system, we generate that number.
Okay. So they were showing there is one additional step. So it's possible to manage all of the 3 different accounts. It's a very easy step, but it's just basically selecting the different accounts
Kind of
after.
like a company number for each.
And then it sounds like they're only doing manual entry payments. Do y'all have an interest in sending out invoices?
What do you mean?
Sending out to your customers invoices through email, or
Most of our invoices are done electronically.
Yeah.
so they are, okay, so I guess I misunderstood. I thought that you said everything was manually entered or taken over the phone.
Well, payments, if they call,
If
we
they
rarely
call,
have
yeah.
face-to-face interactions for
Yeah.
payment with the swipe.
Okay,
But invoices are sent out to our customers electronically.
okay, and you would want to utilize this as well to send them out? Because it does have the capability, or do you send them out through a different system?
No, we send them out through Outlook, right?
Mhm.
In fact, it integrates with Outlook, and we just, click a button, email, and draft our email's already drafted and just send.
Okay, yep. I know we went through this process. Could we potentially show them one more time just what the invoice looks like outbound through email? Now
well,
that we
if-
have
if-
Diana?
If we use the method that they're currently using, we would simply use a web order form. And this one here is our basic web form, but we have a new one that's coming out, I believe, next month. That's actually, you can create a web form that's specific to QuickBooks, and we actually host it so they don't have to put it on their website. But it would still look like this. Why is that in my way?
So our customer sees that,
Oops.
or is that what we see?
So this would be, where am I at? Here we go. This was where I think I wanted to
That's what they
be.
see. Okay.
So the web form, this is basic, and I wish it was a little more flashy, but the payment form that I was talking about that's coming out next month, it has a lot more control and customization to it, but it's still basically the same format. It wouldn't say description, it would say invoice, and they would put in their invoice number and how much they're paying. And then here we can add the convenience fee in the actual form itself. So you would still send the email out through QuickBooks, but in that custom email that you sent, you would add a payment link, and we would provide it either through, you can upload it to your website, or we can provide that through the payment form generator. But then this link would be put in that email, and you would put here, pay now, and they would click on that, which would bring them to a similar form where they would put their invoice number in, how much they're paying, and then they would click continue.
They click on the link and it takes it to.
And then here it would apply the convenience fee and fill in the information that they previously used. So that would be one way to keep it in line with what they're doing currently. And we would charge the convenience fee at the time of the transaction, as opposed to them having to add it into the invoice. Just bear in mind that once the transaction's downloaded in QuickBooks through this method, you'll have that customer will have an overcharge, or they'll have a balance left over because of that convenience fee. So that'll have to be adjusted in QuickBooks as well.
So will they know that there's a convenience fee when they select to pay by a credit card?
Yes, it shows it.
Yeah, it shows it right here.
Previous
Okay.
slide, it said it on there.
So and this question might have already been answered. Okay, got it. Okay. but, nowadays they're using debit cards too, and there's I guess there's a fee for that too.
Oh, yes, under the law, if they're being charged a convenience fee under the law, they have to all be charged the same fee.
So
which is
either
$3.
debit or credit.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because on the internet, they don't have the option to put in their PIN number. So the system actually reads the card as a credit card.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, so anything that goes through the internet, the convenience fee will always apply. You're thinking of more like a cash discount where if they paid cash, then you would give them that discount and that convenience fee wouldn't be applied. But that wouldn't really apply in this scenario. But so in order to keep it in line with what you're currently doing, the web form or the payment form rather would be the better option, because then we can provide them the link to pay online and add the convenience fee at that point. But once the transaction's processed and settled and downloaded in QuickBooks, it's going to show that the customer has a balance. Let me see if I can create a scenario like that. Like,
ACH payment and card payment,
At the same time?
on the same screen. So like, do I have an option to pay either by check or by credit card?
All right, so the question, the question, Ketra, is, are we able to present options when we open up this web form? So the customer could select whether they wanted to do ACH or a check option
Yes.
or a credit card, so we can provide multiple options on that same form?
correct. Our system does support ACH processing. So we can do it two different ways. One, some merchants don't like applying that convenience fee to check transactions. So like with our payment form, you would create two different links, one for credit card that has a convenience fee and another link, excuse me, another form that would not apply it for ACH. And you can specify that this form is strictly for check processing. So that way the customer would get the email, decide, oh, well, I'm paying with credit card, so I'll click here, and then it'll give them the credit card options. And if they click ACH, then it will only give them the ACH option. They won't have an option to do credit card, so they can't bypass that convenience fee.
Okay.
So you can do that too. Or you can have it on one page and the customer can select either or, but the convenience fee would be applied to either type of transaction.
Okay.
In your years of experience, have other companies charged the convenience fee for ACH?
I would say that most are don't generally do that. Like the last few merchants that I've dealt with that have ACH they want to have that separation just for credit card, but not for ACH. So it's really up to how you want to manage that. So we can accommodate either yeah or no, whether you want to do that.
Would we get charged for a ACH payment customer makes?
That's actually a great question. So is there a fee for ACH payments?
Well, that would be handled by the processor. I mean, as far as I know, in our system, any transaction that goes through, we do have a fee, but I'm more technical support, so I don't have the pricing, but each transaction in our system has that minimum fee, transaction fee.
I got charged for it.
I think the banks are
My
charging.
HOA, giving them a check. Why can't you give them cash? They
Yeah.
charge me a fee for it.
They're doing that. So like even municipalities are actually charging a convenience fee for a check.
Yeah, but well, I believe that because I think banks right now,
Are
will
starting-
just, interest
are
and
starting-
everything, yeah.
They're starting to charge. It's a different.
Because they're converting the check into electronic check, and there's processing for that as if it were, credit card, debit card.
May I ask a question, Kendra, too? And I realize it's kind of a pricing question, but not so much. So just to make sure I'm clear, in regards to their per license, is every single business going to be considered their own license and then having licensees underneath them?
Yes, yeah, each account has its own licensing.
Thank you. Did you all have any different other questions pertaining to how you use the bill pay now?
No, I don't know. We've got some customers that are automatically charged currently right now every
Okay.
month.
Like recurring?
How would that work with the pay nada? With your
So you
customer?
have recurring transactions and
Yes,
these in QuickBooks, the invoices are automatically created for you.
correct.
Okay. If the dollar amount's not changing every month, we do have recurring billing. It's found, let's go back up here. Oh, logged me out. So we do have that. The only difference is in some of those situations, since the invoice isn't being provided at the time of the transaction, the logic would be is that it looks for the customer's name. So as long as the name is matching what's in QuickBooks, it'll find it. Then it looks for an open invoice that matches that dollar amount. And in
Okay.
those and in those instances, it will still show up on the ready to record because it was able to decipher that. But if there's a misspelling or if the dollar amount's slightly off, it'll show up in our in the action required tab. And so it'll find the customer, but maybe the dollar amount was different or the invoice number was slightly different than what they entered, something like that. You can go in here and click assign, select the, it's loading. And then select the customer, and then it'll show what invoices are available for that customer.
So that only happens when it does not matches, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct. If there's something that the plugin can't decipher exactly, then it puts it here, giving you an option to figure out what to do with it.
and this here shows us like there's 4 or 5 of them that don't match, so we need to go ahead and apply it.
Right. And even if it's a new customer, for instance, somehow they're not in QuickBooks yet, like it defaults to what we call EPN customer, which is kind of a catch-all. So if I wanted to, you know, I could create, like, let's say it didn't really say Visa card holder. That was a test that I did earlier today, but let's say it just said Joan Collins or something, right? Then I would click here and click new customer, and it would create that customer for me. And then at least that customer's now in QuickBooks. I don't have to do anything more there. You could create an invoice as well for them as well.
Okay.
But it sounds like your situation, your customers are already set up in QuickBooks. So really, in most cases, as long as the customer doesn't enter something incorrectly on the payment page, then it should all show up on ready to record. And
Okay.
then when you get that report, you just select all of them and click record payments. It does give you the option to change it. So let's say it pays a different invoice than the one you wanted it to pay for that customer. You could change it at that time if you wanted
Okay.
to.
Okay. And
Well, I do, but I don't know if we're there yet.
Jeez, do you have any questions?
Question regarding the emailing the link whenever we sent out the invoices. So if we do have multiple companies opened at the same time and we're emailing the invoices, how does that work if we're not setting up the account on the plugin beforehand?
That wouldn't apply to the plugin at that time because you're initiating all of that in QuickBooks and you're not asking the plugin to run a payment. So it should just shouldn't interfere with that. The plugin would simply in your scenario just be used to download the transactions.
Okay.
So it shouldn't. Now the plugin does not work well. I mean, it will shut down if you open 2 company files on the same computer because it can only work with one at a time. So if you have company A open and the plugin's configured to that, but then you open company B, the plugin will tell you another version's open, I need to shut down, and then it'll do that. And so the only way it'll close itself, but you can reopen it by opening just one company file.
Okay. So then as far as whenever we email the invoice, it's just the
primary or?
no, it's just like a blanket link that sends them over to your payment portal, and that's where they say what the invoice number is. And then that's where they type in their amount that they want to pay, correct? The one that you
Correct.
showed us a little bit earlier ago.
The bill pay, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
So the bill pay is different than what we were talking about a moment ago. This cannot apply the convenience fee at the time of the transaction because we are just emulating what you've done in QuickBooks. Any changes you make in QuickBooks to the customer data or the invoice will reflect here. But we can't change the value. We have to be told by QuickBooks. Now, if you wanted to go the route of just using our bill pay without doing it that way, then we could use the convenience fee, but that would be double work on your part because you would have to create the invoice in QuickBooks and in our system to kind of all match up. So, but if you wanted to, do it like where we upload the invoice to the system, then it would prompt to ask to do that if you get that set up, and that's upload to bill pay here. We also have a bill pay manager, which allows you to do, you can also do get open invoices, and it allows you to just select everybody and then it uploads them all at one time. So you kind of have control over either you can do it at the time you create it, or you can just wait to the end of the day and do it. But this would be one of those situations where you'd want to make sure you're in the right configuration of the plugin, the right account.
Okay.
So I guess I need clarification. We have 3 companies, right?
Mhm.
Can we bill them simultaneously? We have 3 groups. So each group, each person has a responsibility to send out the invoices. Will each group simultaneously send out the invoices at the same time, or do we have to wait for each other?
Well, as long as you're each logged into a separate account in our system, or in QuickBooks rather, like if AJ is in company A and you're in company B, then y'all could work in the plugin configured to your computer specifically.
Oh,
It would
okay.
not interfere. So
Okay.
as long as if you're doing it that way, then you can utilize and work with QuickBooks all you want, and that won't interfere with the plugin. The only
Okay.
time that you would have a problem is if, let's say, AJ logs into company A, he just needs to make sure that this is configured to the right account before he logs into company B,
Okay.
that kind of thing. Mhm.
So I don't think that part would work with ours then. Because the way that we have QuickBooks set up on our computers, it is a desktop version, similar to what you have on there right now.
Mhm.
But ours is in our cloud system. So anytime we install any type of plugin in one computer, it mimics it off to the other 8 users in the office. So I'm thinking, I don't know if this has happened with any past clients or not, but I'm thinking that if AJ puts in that he's in account number 2300, I think it'll mimic account number 2300 to all the other 8 users, even though they're in the separate QuickBooks accounts.
Let me ask, is QuickBooks actually installed on the server, or is just the company files saved there?
It's on the server.
So you're remote logging into QuickBooks on the server?
Yes, that's correct.
That runs into a problem because one, it's not really designed for that type of environment, the plugin. Plus, it's only can be configured to one account at a time. In instances that it does work, it would only open for the first person to log into QuickBooks. So, if you both tried to log in, the person who got it first would open for them. That's assuming it even worked in that environment. So it's not designed for that type
Okay.
of environment. But if QuickBooks was actually installed on your computer and you're just opening the company file remotely from the server, then it would work, because it's not dependent on the server environment to run. It's dependent on the PC. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
But we'll run through the server.
So whatever one person does, like how he said, it'd be based on the first person who logged in and the first person that uses it. So if Abraham ran credit cards under company A account, then if
I
you
won't be
try
able to do
doing,
it.
well, you can do it, but you'll be doing it under company A's account, even though you're doing Ferris's invoices. So then
Oh.
we'll start mixing it up and then it'll just kind of be a
Oh,
catch-all pool,
Hmm.
because Abraham was the first one to log in for the day and everything is gonna be run under company A, even though you're in company B, that plugin isn't, it's communicating more with his because he was the first person to log in.
Well, in most cases, it would only
Oh.
open for the first person who accessed QuickBooks for the day. So no one else would actually see it. It would only, like if AJ logged in and he was the first one in that morning, he would see it, but no one else. And that's assuming that the plugin actually works in that environment. It's
Mhm.
a rare, I mean, we don't suggest it. We've had merchants do it in the past, but it is kind of dependent on what they do on their end to make it work. 'Cause
Mhm.
sometimes server environments don't, aren't very friendly, I guess you would say. So it may not be even work in that environment. But if it does, in most cases, it only opens to the first person who accesses QuickBooks.
Okay. And I mean, as far as the plugin part of it, I'm not too worried about it because that's kind of how we have it set up as well. So we have 3 different ways that we could access how whenever we run credit cards. The first one is going to intuit.quickbooks.com, and that's how we access it through the internet. We could manually type it in there. The second one, it's similar to this plugin,
Mhm.
but it allows us to have all 3 companies open, and it allows us to run the different credit cards for those different companies at the same time.
Mhm.
And then the third way is the email link. So we could work with 2 of the 3 if the plugin won't necessarily work. We just have to make sure that the online portal side of it works for us the way that we're using it right now.
Right, I see. I mean, you can always, through your account on our website, you can always run transactions. This is the
Mhm.
online terminal, and it can be accessed by multiple people in the office. There's no restrictions. But if you don't have the plugin, then there's no communication with QuickBooks. So somebody would have to manually record the payment in QuickBooks.
And that's okay because that's kind of what we're doing right now
Currently
too,
doing.
because of that reason that we have the 3 companies. So that's why I'm not that worried about the plugin maybe not working with the 3 companies opening. But as long as we could get the website portal like what you have up right now working and it works for us, then I think we should be okay. So like on this screen right here, we would be able, each company would have its own login to access this screen right here.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
you would just log in. We do have a master account, so you can log in to one account and it would actually give you access to all 3. And then like in this screen, I don't have that demo to be honest, but it would like give you a little drop down menu and you could select the appropriate company you want to run the
Oh,
card
okay.
for.
Oh, okay.
And then you would just select that company and then then any transaction you run would be for that company. They would still be separate companies in our system, but you would have one login to access all 3. You'd still be able to see reporting for all 3. You could see all the details in the transactions. So you could look at each count from one portal access point.
And that follows the merchant, right? Okay.
So essentially, one person can do all 3 companies, just
Click
drop down.
drop down, and then Ferris, and then.
So then, just to clarify, if we were to do it, if we were to run the card this way through the online portal, we would have to manually account for the convenience fee, correct? It won't do it automatically?
That is correct.
Okay.
Oh.
So exactly same
How
thing
we're
as
doing
we
it
have.
now.
You have
Well,
you have to calculate the percent.
the conversation does change a little bit. So just so I understand, originally, and to kind of circle back, so we are the processor.
Mhm.
The plugin comes in, and this is a separate company, the processing network. The plugin comes in if you were working strictly with the enterprise and it wasn't connected to your server. So that's where the plugin comes in. Now that the conversation has changed and you're working off of a server, but you're also interested in a tool, there's a lesser, we own a company that allows you, or have partial ownership in a company that allows you to do everything this virtual terminal does. And it would automatically include the fee, where you wouldn't have to do any manual entry. You'll be able to record client data, you'll be able to put in recurring payments. So all of that will happen the same way you're doing it now. But I wasn't aware that you were working off of a server. So that's originally
Oh.
what brought us to here in this conversation
Okay.
was just having that direct connectivity
Yeah, yeah.
between an enterprise platform. Now that that conversation is tabled, we can kind of take it back where we might not necessarily need to involve the processing network anymore, because we have the same tool that sounds like it's going to do what you're asking,
Okay,
and it's not going to have, the expense to it is null. You truly just eliminate all your
there's no
fees.
added expenses.
No.
It's already
There's no
included in
user
it.
fee, there's no anything.
Oh,
So
okay.
you could have 10 people on there at the same time. There's no monthly fee for that. You're just gonna have the portal, and then you're gonna save all your fees.
Oh, okay.
Question, so the lookup customer,
Mhm.
let's say, the first customer you're looking up is a HD customer, looks him up, finds him, and then the next customer is a cash out customer, you look them up here and it pulls them up.
You'll have a search database in this other system, yes.
So processing network is a different company then.
Yes, well, and so at this point, Ketra, I guess, just so I think kind of where we're at this point, tabling the conversation, because it sounds like what you can offer through the online terminal is essentially what they're doing now, and they want something that is going to include the fee, which is that we have a feature that does that for our company. So I don't know, I mean, unless y'all feel differently, really the best way this tool is going to be utilized is to use it if you were not set into a server, since you are, this tool, as far as the plugin, isn't going to be best utilized for your company. So I think that we're probably safe to move forward from the demo today. Would you agree, Ketra?
Yeah, that's,
Okay, well, thank
Okay.
you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ketra.
you're welcome. Did you still want me to send you the link to the video?
Yes, that would be great. Thank
Okay,
you.
I'll do that.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.